When he sent the invitation, he believed it would be the final strike, the cruelest wound to a woman he once promised to love forever. To him, it was the perfect opportunity to gloat, to prove he had risen while she had sunk into nothingness. He imagined her arriving in cheap clothes, nervous eyes darting among the glittering crowd, embarrassed by her own existence. What he didn't know was that life had a way of turning wounds into weapons, and the woman he thought was broken had already rebuilt herself from the ground up. Her name was Anna. She had once been a simple, gentle soul with big dreams of love and family. She didn't care for riches or status, all she ever wanted was to stand beside the man she loved and help him grow. That man was David, someone she once believed was her forever. Their love began in simplicity, walking home together after long shifts, sharing meals made from scraps, whispering dreams in the quiet of the night. David often told her, "One day, we'll have everything. I'll give you the world." And she believed him. When David struggled to launch his business, it was Anna who carried the weight. She worked 2 jobs, sewing during the night and cleaning homes in the morning. She sold her mother's necklace, the only heirloom she had left, to give him money for his first investment. She skipped meals so he could eat. She endured exhaustion so he could rest. In every sacrifice, she saw a future shining ahead. She believed love was enough, but as David's fortunes began to rise, so did his arrogance. Success did not soften his heart, it hardened it. He started seeing Anna as a shadow dragging behind him rather than the reason he was standing at all. He mocked her plain dresses, her rough hands, her lack of education. "You don't belong in the world I'm building," he once said, his voice dripping with disdain. She had laughed it off at first, convincing herself he was tired or stressed, but soon his cruelty became his truth. David met Sophia at a business event. She was wealthy, glamorous, and came from a family whose name carried weight. To him, she was the shortcut to higher status, the golden ticket. The affair began quietly, but the betrayal was loud. Anna discovered it one rainy evening when David didn't return home. She went searching, only to find him in a luxury restaurant, holding Sophia's hand with a look he had once reserved for her. When confronted, David didn't deny it. He looked at her with cold eyes and said, "You were good for me when I had nothing. But now, you're not enough. I need more than a poor woman's love." Those words pierced deeper than any knife. She begged him not for herself, but for the love they once shared. She reminded him of the sacrifices she had made, the nights she had starved for his dreams. But he dismissed her, telling her to sign the divorce papers. In the blink of an eye, the life she built with him was torn apart. She left with nothing, not even the dignity of a kind farewell. Nights became endless oceans of tears. Anna lay awake in a small rented room, clutching her belly, whispering prayers for strength. Because what David didn't care to know was that she was carrying his children. Triplets. She discovered her pregnancy not long after the divorce, and the news felt like both a curse and a miracle. Alone, penniless, and heartbroken, she could have crumbled. But the tiny lives growing inside her gave her reason to rise. The journey was brutal. She worked through swollen feet and aching bones. She washed clothes for strangers, took in sewing work, and never allowed herself to complain. Every coin she earned went into saving for her children. She gave birth alone, the cries of 3 fragile infants filling a cold hospital room. She looked at them with tears streaming down her face, whispering, "You are my strength. You are my tomorrow." From that day on, she vowed never to allow despair to control her again. Years rolled forward, and Anna transformed. She turned her sewing skills into a small business. Slowly, she built a reputation for designing beautiful, unique clothes. Word spread. Orders grew. She reinvested every penny, never wasting time on bitterness. Her children became her fuel. The woman David had abandoned was no longer broken, she was unrecognizable, a phoenix rising from ashes. Meanwhile, David's world sparkled. He flaunted his wealth, paraded Sophia like a prize, and sneered at the memory of Anna. To him, she was nothing more than a forgotten chapter, a symbol of his lowly past. When he planned his lavish wedding to Sophia, he thought of her not with guilt, but with malice. He wanted her to see the king he had become. Sending her the invitation wasn't an act of kindness, it was a weapon meant to shatter her spirit. He pictured her arriving alone, tired, embarrassed, wishing she had clung to him. When Anna received the invitation, she sat silently at her desk, her children's laughter echoing from the other room. At first, old wounds bled again. She felt the sting of betrayal as if it had happened yesterday. But then, she smiled. Not the smile of someone broken, but the calm smile of someone who knew the truth. She whispered, "He thinks I am the same woman he left behind." She folded the invitation carefully, set it aside, and decided she would attend. Not because she needed closure, but because the universe had handed her the perfect moment. She didn't plan revenge with anger in her heart. Her life was already full, her children, her success, her hard-earned peace. But she knew standing in that hall, not as a victim but as a victor, would be justice enough. David had written a stage for her humiliation, but without realizing, he had prepared the stage for his own downfall. The day approached, and whispers filled the air. David boasted to his friends, "She'll come crawling. Just wait, you'll see. She will be nothing compared to Sophia." His friends laughed, encouraging his cruelty. None of them knew what awaited. Anna prepared quietly, choosing elegance over extravagance. Her children, now vibrant and radiant, were by her side. Together, they embodied everything David had thrown away: love, loyalty, family, and resilience. She looked at herself in the mirror, no longer the broken woman sobbing in a rented room, but a woman carved by pain into unshakable strength. She whispered softly, "This isn't for him. This is for me. This is for us." And so, when the wedding day came, David was ready to savor her shame. But fate was already writing a different ending. The wedding day had arrived, and the city buzzed with whispers of David's grand celebration. The venue was drenched in luxury, chandeliers glittered like stars, and expensive cars lined the entrance. Guests in designer clothes moved around, sipping champagne and murmuring about the groom's success. David stood tall, his chest puffed out with pride, certain that today he would cement his image as a man who had everything. Sophia shone in her gown, smiling at the attention, but David's mind wandered to one detail he anticipated most: the arrival of his ex-wife. He longed to see Anna crushed by the life she had lost. As the ceremony unfolded, David basked in the admiration of his guests. He boasted of his wealth, gesturing toward the lavish decorations. Some whispered about Anna, curious if she would dare to show her face. "She must be so humiliated," one guest chuckled, and David smirked, believing his plan was unfolding perfectly. But outside, destiny was preparing to strike in silence. A low murmur spread among the crowd when the sound of an unfamiliar engine purred at the entrance. Heads turned. A Rolls-Royce, gleaming under the sun, slowly rolled to a stop. Gasps escaped lips, and whispers grew louder. Who could it be? The car door opened, and when Anna stepped out, time seemed to freeze. No one expected to see her like this, elegant, composed, radiating grace. Her gown was simple yet striking, her presence commanding attention without the need for extravagance. She wasn't the woman David discarded. She wasn't broken. She was reborn, but the true shock hadn't even arrived. As she moved forward, 3 small figures stepped out of the car, 3 children, each a reflection of David's face, their resemblance undeniable. Triplets. The guests erupted into stunned murmurs, their eyes darting between Anna, the children, and the groom standing at the altar. The whispers turned into waves of scandal. Are those his children? He left her while she carried them. Shock and judgment spread like fire through the hall. David's confident smile collapsed. His face drained of color as he stared at the children, realizing instantly what he had abandoned. His arrogance cracked, replaced by dread. He hadn't just left a woman, he had abandoned his own blood. The very thing Anna had nurtured alone was now standing before him, undeniable proof of his betrayal. His chest tightened with shame, but more than that, fear. The perfect image he had built was crumbling right before his guest's eyes. Anna didn't need to raise her voice or point fingers. Her silence spoke louder than any accusation. With her children holding her hands, she walked gracefully into the hall, her head high, her gaze calm. Every step she took was a mirror reflecting David's cruelty back at him. The guests, who once admired him, now looked at him with disgust. He left this woman for money. He abandoned his own children. What kind of man does that? The murmurs turned into judgment, and the groom who once believed he would shine now stood exposed in disgrace. Sophia's smile vanished. Her hands trembled as she looked at the children, then at David. Rage burned in her eyes as she realized he had hidden the truth. To her, this wasn't just about Anna. It was humiliation. Her wealthy family, proud of their daughter's marriage, now stared at David with contempt. Their whispers carried sharp edges. He lied to us. What shame he has brought. The alliance that David had counted on to secure his place in society was unraveling faster than he could comprehend. David tried to regain control, his voice breaking as he stammered, "Anna, this isn't the time," but his words sounded weak, pathetic against the strength of the woman before him. He stepped forward, lowering his voice, "Why didn't you tell me?" Anna's eyes met his, calm and steady. Her reply cut through the silence, "You never cared to ask. You were too busy chasing what glittered." Her words carried no bitterness, only truth. And that truth shattered him more than anger ever could. The children clung to Anna, their innocence contrasting sharply with David's guilt. Guests whispered about how she had raised them alone, how she had built herself from nothing, how she had walked into the wedding not to beg but to prove she had survived. The very moment David intended for her shame became the stage for his downfall. Sophia turned on him, her voice sharp with fury. "You never told me you had children. You hid your past. You let me walk into this humiliation." She pulled her hand away from his grasp, and the crowd watched as the perfect couple's image shattered in real time. David tried to speak, but every word died in his throat. The weight of judgment from every pair of eyes bore down on him, stripping him of his false pride. Anna didn't linger. She didn't need to witness his collapse. With dignity, she turned to her children, guiding them out of the hall. Each step echoed like thunder in David's chest. He wanted to stop her, to beg, to plead for forgiveness, but his feet felt anchored by shame. He had orchestrated a spectacle, but it was he who had been put on display, naked in his betrayal. As Anna walked past the guests, many bowed their heads in respect. Some whispered admiration for her strength, others wept quietly at her resilience. The sight of her leaving in that Rolls-Royce, her children's laughter filling the air, became a symbol of triumph over cruelty. She had come not to destroy, but to show that no betrayal, no humiliation, could keep her from rising higher. David stood frozen at the altar, the ceremony in ruins. Sophia's family demanded explanations, their disgust plain. His friends avoided his eyes, ashamed of ever laughing at his cruelty. His pride, his wealth, his carefully constructed world, all of it lay in tatters. What he thought would be his crowning moment had become his greatest disgrace. Anna, meanwhile, left with peace in her heart. She didn't look back, because she had no need to. Her children, her success, and her dignity were all the proof she required that life had repaid her pain with strength. The man who betrayed her had nothing left but shame, while she carried everything that truly mattered. The story spread beyond the wedding. People spoke not of David's wealth, but of Anna's courage. They admired her resilience, her refusal to be broken. Her life became a testament to the truth that love, loyalty, and strength outweigh glittering lies. She had turned pain into power, betrayal into beauty, and David, once the man who thought he had it all, was left to watch from the ruins of his pride as the woman he tried to humiliate rose higher than he could ever reach, because life always has a way of turning the tables, and on that day, in front of everyone, the tables turned forever.